The film begins with a party at Dean and Bunny's house with many couples in attendance. Bunny is the winner of a game in which the wives balance a tray with a glass of liquor on their heads. Another couple, Alice and Jack, sneak out and go for a drive in Jack's car, doing donuts. Alice makes breakfast for Jack the next day, and the two appear to have a picture-perfect relationship. The couple and their friends live in Victory Town, a 1950s-style community where the wives all see off their husbands as they leave for work at the same time to go to Victory headquarters in the desert. Their jobs are allegedly in technology. Alice stays at home and spends time with Bunny and the other wives. Alice attends a dance class taught by Shelley, Frank's wife and the Victory Project's founder. They welcome Violet, whose husband Bill has joined the other men working at HQ. Everyone in the neighborhood gathers at Frank and Shelley's house for a party and to discuss the next step in their Victory Project. Margaret. During the party, Alice returns to the house, where Jack discovers her and begins kissing her. Frank enters the room quietly and watches, with Alice noticing him, but Jack never notices before Frank slips out again. Later, Alice rides the trolley out of town and into the desert. She looks up at the sky and notices a plane crashing into the side of the mountain where Victory HQ is located. Alice instructs the trolley driver to go there, but he refuses because it is not on his route. Alice continues on foot up the mountain, where she appears to find a mirror rather than a plane. When she touches it, she sees haunting images of blood drops and women dancing in unison, as well as hearing Frank's voice. Margaret calls Alice and inquires about the plane that she witnessed. Despite Margaret's pleas, Alice tells her not to call her after she denies it. Margaret is later found standing on the roof of her house by Alice. She rushes to assist, but Margaret looks at her and slits her own throat before falling from the roof. Men in red suits arrive and drag Alice away from Margaret's body. Jack summons Dr. Collins to the house to check on Alice. Collins claims that Margaret required stitches after falling out of her window while cleaning it. After determining that Alice must be exhausted, Alice waits for Jack and Collins to be out of sight so she can go through his bag and pull out a file labeled "Security Risk" on Margaret. Alice goes through the file and discovers that most of it is blacked out with little useful information, so she burns it. Strange visions and occurrences begin to haunt Alice. She sees an image of Margaret smashing her head against the mirror during her dance class, causing her to freak out in front of everyone. She tries to cook eggs at home but discovers that the shells are hollow and empty. Alice slips into the water while taking a bath, and her reflection appears to look back at her. Alice and Jack attend a major event hosted by Frank, which includes all of the other couples. Frank invites Jack onto the stage and informs the audience that he has promoted Jack to work with the senior advisory board. Everyone applauds as Frank begins chanting, "Whose world is this? Ours?" Alice walks out and is discovered by Bunny. Alice tries to explain that something is wrong, but Bunny tells her not to make assumptions. Alice and Jack later invite Frank and Shelley, Bill and Violet, and another couple, Peg and Peter, to a dinner. Frank tells Alice privately that he was hoping for someone like her to challenge him. During the dinner, Alice mentions a few observations she's made, such as how the women all have the same story about how they met their husbands, the women dropped their train tickets and the men picked them up, and how the majority of the women are from Philadelphia, Chicago, or Baltimore. Shelley chastises Alice for openly accusing Frank of being behind something sinister. Alice confronts Jack and begs him to leave the situation. He appears to agree, and they make it to the car until the men in red suits arrive and drag Alice out, screaming and pleading with Jack to help, but he can only sit in his car yelling in remorse. She is taken to a hospital and undergoes a procedure. After that, a flashback shows Alice working as a nurse in a hospital. She is seen living with Jack in a rundown apartment, looking more unkempt, and he is disappointed that she doesn't want to do anything with him because she works so long and is so tired. Jack is inspired to join the Victory Project after hearing Frank's motivational speeches, which turns out to be a virtual simulation that the husbands use to keep their wives trapped in order to serve their needs and desires. When Alice touched the mirror, she woke herself up until Jack made it possible for her to stay there. He lies next to her, his mind linked to Victory's. Alice returns to Victory after appearing to be healed by the doctors. However, Alice disagrees with Jack again, who claims that he did everything for her, despite the fact that she was content in the real world living her own life with her own authority. In a desperate attempt to break free, Alice smashes a liquor glass over Jack's head, killing him both in Victory and in the real world. When the higher-ups become aware of this, things in the community begin to go haywire, such as street bulbs bursting unexpectedly. Bunny tells Alice that she has always known the truth and that even her own children aren't real, so she encourages her to take Dean's car and drive to HQ to end this. The red suits pursue Alice as she drives out into the desert. Collins follows, but Alice applies the brakes, causing Collins to collide with some of the red suits, killing them all. More cars begin to pursue Alice until she reaches the mountain. Meanwhile, when Frank learns of Alice's deeds, Shelley stabs him in the gut. She claims he ruined everything by failing to keep this contained, and she declares, "It's now my turn." Alice's car becomes stuck on the mountainside, blocking the path upwards. The red suits start climbing the mountain to pursue her. Alice gets to the mirror and briefly feels as if Jack is standing behind her, asking her to stay for him. She dashes to the mirror just as the red suits approach. Then the screen goes black, and the last thing we hear is Alice gasping as she awakens in the real world.